All right, everyone, welcome to another episode of Courageous Conversations. I'm your host, Laurabel Mba, and it is another Black History Month episode, and which means I get to talk to another cool Black person about Black joy. And so today I have Agapi, and if you had to know anything about this woman, I have to say that you know when she's in a room. I have the distinct pleasure of meeting her at the WXN 100 Most Powerful Women in Canada Awards in 2024. And I felt really shy and awkward when I met her. And she was there being the best hype person you could ever ask for. She was nothing but joy personified. She was elegant. She was kind. She was everything that little me would have wanted to see in an adult growing up. So when it came time to talk about who do I want to talk to about Black joy, I had to think about someone who showed me Black joy in a room of other dynamic, courageous, intelligent women. It was an honor to be in her group and in her space. So it is my
Gosh,
pleasure to give
you're
you
making me cry and we just started? What is happening?
it is my pleasure to give you Agapi, and I will let her give her intro.
Oh my
Hi,
gosh,
friend.
you need to come everywhere I am. And that was so emotional. I was not expecting that. She was like, it's going to be the most unprofessional, off the cuff. And I was like, oh, okay, sure. I thought it was going to be like hilarious. Like, oh yeah. And she ate with the wrong fork. I don't know. Oh, that was so sweet. Oh my gosh. Well, I'm just a gappy and I would probably say like outside of the wonderful things that you just said about me, um, I believe in community first, and I think we have that in common. And I've dedicated my career to really Black communities, but underserved communities. And I sit at the intersection. Well, now I have a new role, but I sit at the intersection of a bit of technology now that I know nothing about it. I'm getting to know, if I'm being real, philanthropy, government, and community. And I think that I always believe that we can build systems together collectively. And that's kind of my life's work. So, yeah, that's the only thing I would add. But what you said was so it's interesting to hear people's perspective of you in a space. And I'm just very touched by that. Thank you.
No worries, just speaking the truth. So, the theme for our chat is about Black joy. As I said, Black History Month, each year the federal government decides on a theme, but based on the experiences of me and other Black people I happen to be in community with in 2025, it was a hard year all around for a lot of people. But one thing I found common is Black people are going to laugh. Regardless
Yes.
of what we're facing, we're going to laugh, we're going to find joy. And I really wanted to explore what that looked like if we actually took a minute to dive into it and talk about it. So, over the course of this conversation, we're going to be talking about Black joy, what it means to you, where it comes from, how we get into that. So, my first question to you is what does the idea of Black joy mean to you?
Yeah, I believe the concept of Black joy for me is in many ways every day. Like, I think that Black folks just have an innate instinct to laugh when things like, even when I meet with my therapist, like, I was having a session with her and I was like describing a childhood situation. And I was just like hysterically laughing because I'm like, now that I'm saying this outright, like this sounds a bit outrageous. And she was like, not laughing at all. And I think
Oops.
culturally, we just have like an innate default to like find the laughter in it or the like, oh yeah, now that I think back on that, instead of being like sad and depressed about it or whatever the case is. So I think that when I think about Black joy, I see it as a natural, innate thing that we have within us. Number one. And number two, I think it's such a necessity. Like, in order for us to survive on a day to day and not be like depressed and sad all the time, I think it's so important for us to be thinking about what brings us joy, how we can bring joy. If you look at culture, if you look at like comedians, etc., like Black folks have shaped what that joy looks like. Dancing, music, all of those things, I think, as historically oppressed people, because we are not anymore, I think as a historically oppressed folks, we've always had to find those pockets of joy, all of those moments of joy. and turn, not so exciting situations into laughter, into joy, into whatever. So I actually think it's very innate in us as a people to do it. And I think that's why most of us are so hilarious.
Just like hair behind the ear.
Right, exactly.
That idea of us, finding it, creating it, even in face of like unsurmountable obstacles, some would think, like, how have you personally, looking back at your life, found joy? And especially in the harder seasons, what was it that you found, or how did you, if you only had a little speck, how did you hold on to it through seasons that seemed really dark?
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, like life has thrown me a lot of lemons like to the face. And so I think like the other piece to this and the other flip side to this is like it wasn't always like, oh, I need to find the joy in this. Like it was not like that. There were also times where I was just like, is this a joke? Like quite literally. Like so I think in those moments gratitude is what has always grounded me to be like the situation could I personally have the nature my instincts are always to think of a worst case scenario and then plan for it, right? And so this is coming from someone who does that because I think oftentimes when people are like, let's look for the gratitude in it, or let's look at the brighter side and let's find joy and hold on to it. Often those are people who are like planning for the best case scenario and looking at the bright side of things. I am not that. So for any of you who feel bad about that, because I do feel bad about that sometimes, like I am somebody who is very much thinking about like, okay, my man's acting crazy. Like Armageddon is coming. Christ is coming tomorrow. How are we going to plan this? Like, what's our exit strategy? Let's do an emergency like test drill. So coming from someone like that, I think gratitude is something that I often think about because I'm like, this is the worst case scenario. However, I'm very grateful that I'm thinking about that and I have the skill set and the problem solving that's necessary in order to fix this. I think no matter what destination we're all going to, there's always going to be storms. I'm a believer. And so there's always going to be storms, but I believe that in my case, my creator is going to knows what destination I'm going to, but he does not promise that it's going to be an easy road, right? He's going to make sure that there's storms, there's floods, there's whatever. But at the end of the day, I'm very focused on I know my destination is going to be a great place for me. The road to get there might not be so exciting. So along the way, I hold very true to the fact that I know that my destination is going to be great. And I also take the lessons and the storms along the way as lessons. So instead of thinking about like, oh my gosh, this boat is about to capsize, I'm like, I'm so grateful that I can actually swim and that I went to, and I know how to swim and I know how to navigate this situation. So I'm grateful for that. So I know that doesn't really like speak to the exact like joy piece because sometimes joy is just knowing that you know how to swim when your thing is about
That
to capsize.
It is joy, though. I think that that's really,
Yeah.
really it. Like, knowing that I'm not going to drown is a joyous moment when everyone else is figuring I can't swim. And that's
They're all like, I
okay.
can't swim. Yeah,
And that's
totally.
that's absolutely okay. But I love the way you have kind of explained that at the end of the day, you're
Mhm.
going to be fine. That but also acknowledging that just because you're going to be fine does not mean it's going to be smooth sailing the entire way. There might be a fire, there might be a tornado. You're just going to be like, I'm not done yet though. So it's going to be
Yeah,
okay.
exactly. And I think sometimes there's seasons of storms that last longer. And, the other piece to it is also knowing who you are and what your values are. Like, really early in my career, I had really excellent career coaches that grounded me in like figuring out what my personal values were, what my personal, yeah, what my personal values were. So if it didn't fit into love, community, adventure, integrity, then I'm not doing it or I'm not exploring that thing, right? So I was very clear early on what my personal values were. And so part of it also is as storms and things show up, they want to steal your joy, which you need to be very, very mindful of. People will make you think that you're less than who you actually are. They're going to try and say that you bring less value than what you actually bring to the table. They're going to no matter anyone who is succeeding and doing well in something, subconsciously or consciously, you have people who are just people say, "Oh, my spirit doesn't take to you," or people who are intentional or unintentional that are always going to try and chip away at something. And it's really important for you to know who you are, what you bring to the table, what your values are. If I know I'm an integrative person, you can't tell me that I'm not. Right? And if I'm operating in that way in everything that I do, then you can't also, like, there will be no evidence of it, right? So oftentimes I think we allow people to steal our joy because we don't know who we are, whose we are in my case. I know I'm a daughter of a king. So you can't take my joy away because I know who gave it to me, what I bring to the table, etc. So oftentimes, I think part of holding on to that is also holding on to who you are and reminding yourself when nobody else around you might be able to have the capacity to do that, is for you to also remind yourself of what you do, how you show up, what you bring to the table in any situation, whether that's your workplace, whether it's relationally, etc. And holding on to that joy is knowing, like, I would hope that people would bring the values and the things that make them great, right? And, like, yes, there's gonna be attributes to us that we don't love so much, but when you're creating your values structure, you're creating, like, who you are and who you want to hold on to and maintain. So, as you're going through those seasons with people, things, workplaces, etcetera, it's important also to just know who you are and know that there's joy in that alone, right? Because oftentimes there's the devaluing. And I think if you can remember who you are and why you're here, a purpose driven life is the best type of life. So it's like if you know who you are and why you're here and you can hold on to that, that is so joyous all on its own. Like, I was created for this purpose, this moment, this time. Like, there's a reason why we were born in Canada, our parents immigrated here, like, they did the hard work, right? So that we didn't have to. That's, like, a joyous thing for me to think about all on my own.
I really like how you one already answered my second question indirectly,
Okay.
my third question to you indirectly, because it was going to be about like how do you see joy as something worth protecting. So when you talked about like they are going to be people who are going to be like my spirit doesn't mesh with you or this is not the vibe for me or who because they might not feel like they have joy in their lives feel the need to like suction it from other people. And it feels like you are intentional about protecting your joy.
Oh, yes. Because the other piece to this is, like, particularly when talking to Black folks, because it's Black History Month, so, like, especially when talking to Black folks, when people are like, "Oh, well, you just got here because of DEI." Okay, well, I'm here now.
Like, what are you gonna do?
Ta-da! Like, it doesn't make me any less brilliant, it doesn't make me any less great. People saying that, "Oh, you're a DI hire," or whatever. Okay, there are many instances in my life where I was in a room simply because I was living in poverty and I was given an opportunity because of that. Guess what? I'm here. And guess what? I'm going to make well use of this opportunity right here. And I'm going to escalate that into 10 times fold, which I have done. So I also think that most of the time it's more about and this is a very easy thing to say and a very hard thing to practice, right? And I'm saying that from experience because you don't even have to have any type of real influence. You could have this, or you don't even know what your influence is. And you're just here living your life. And there's like, right? And so, particularly Black folks, when you're entering into workplaces, oftentimes people think like, oh, well, they're out to get me, particularly. Like, why would they say that microaggression? That's towards most of the time, those people, just like you're living your life, they're living their life in their prejudiced mindset and they don't even know it. So part of it, the best thing that I do in those situations is I'm like, is this a me thing or is this a them thing? If it's a them thing, please stay far from me. And I have had to say to people, please don't push your insecurities onto me. That has nothing to do with me. And that is, we really have to be able to hold ourselves accountable to our own behaviors, of course, and do a little bit of a gut check. But when it's not about us, it's not about us. That's a you thing. That's not a me thing. And I think in the world of social media and like where people are just like internet thugs, it becomes a bit difficult because people can just say whatever they want and there's no necessary accountability or they like, become comment thugs or whatever. But at the end of the day, I think in an age where public opinion becomes so important, it's also like understanding who you are and what you bring to the table is so should be so precious to you. And the other thing that I would also say is like I believe in really in small inner circles, right? Like I call those folks like my board of directors. Like inner circles, they know me. They are my confidants. These are people who've been with me for a very long time. I could decide that I want to do something outrageous. They'll go find me in the crack house. You know what I mean? And be like, I'm here to get her because I care about her. I think that's important. And then you have like the layers, but it's important for you to also acknowledge where your layers lie because we live in an age where people think that they know you and they don't actually know you. They know like a persona of you, what you put out on social media, et cetera, right? Like we were talking about your election. I'm like, oh my gosh, like when did that? Because it didn't show up on my feed. It's like it never
Yeah.
happened in my mind, right? So I'm like, oh, when did that happen? Oh my gosh. So the reality is that people think that they know you and they really don't know you. People have like relationship advice on a daily basis with them and their husband, and the next time they post, they're like, "Oh, we're done." Like, and you're just like, "What
Yeah.
happened?" So
No, it's true.
these relationships a bit become a bit artificial, and so the thing that you have to know and stay true to is your actual who you are, what you bring to the table, gut checking not with the outer circle folks because you they don't know you, but to gut
Yeah.
check with the inner circle folks. And so when you're at work and you're experiencing a Karen moment, it's not about you, it's about Karen. That's a Karen thing. And yes, it can affect you if you allow it, right? Like I've been through horrible breakups and I'm like the only thing that I said to the Lord is, please, Father, I just don't want to be bitter and I don't want to change who I am because of this particular relationship or this experience. Because oftentimes that's what ends up happening is we steal our own joy because somebody else has now. I was just like, granted, I went to like a retreat for 5 days and did not speak. However,
Hey, brought
that's what
you
was
joy.
necessary, right? That's what was necessary. And I'm like, okay, I'm gonna do all of the crying, all the what. But whatever was a him thing now needs to be sent back to the sender so that I could be like all good and clear because I want to be a gappy. I don't want to be a gappy post dating loser, right? Like, and I had
Absolutely.
never experienced that before. And I never understood how people would like become upset and bitter because I think when we are exposed to people who are negative or exposed to negative experiences, our natural inclination is to self protect and then therefore harden our hearts. And that chips away at our joy. That chips away at who we are and how we want to show up and our innocence and our childlike, behavior. It's like I have one bad interaction with a black woman and then the next time I see one, I'm like, oh, I don't want to talk to them. I don't want to interact with them because I'm missing out on a blessing because I could be meeting somebody and because I'm like closed off and because I had that one bad experience, I now am robbing myself of the opportunity to engage with like the most wonderful woman alive, right? These are all things that we have to protect because in the midst of the world doing its worldly thing, the more we chip away at ourselves and who we are and we are not staying firm in that, that's where joy just gets depleted from the world. And then we all just become bitter and like love, you know, the drama of
Nice.
it all. Yeah.
Absolutely. So first I'm going to touch on the fact I like the idea of like your board of directors because so with me and my friends because we all have so many moving parts like my birthday we call it an AGM. It's the annual general
I love
meeting where
that.
everyone who knows everyone will be seated at that table and you go and you do your yearly update of this is what has happened since the last year. And
Oh, I
the
love that.
thing we always make intentional is like what's the one thing that I am really glad occurred this year?
Mm,
What's the one thing that I found happiness and I found joy, I found contentment or gratitude? That's the one thing we always make sure to share so that regardless of all the other things, we can still center on that idea of gratitude that you have. So I like that there's a
absolutely.
commonality
Yeah,
there.
I love that.
So when we talk about this idea, and you've touched on it a little bit, but why does joy matter? So not just to Agapi, not just to Laurabel, but like why does it matter for our communities?
Well, I think we see it on a day-to-day basis. Like rage bait is like a thing. Negative for some reason, I don't know the science of it, so maybe have someone on the podcast who understands that side of it. But like negativity just has a really good way of being picked up and like people gravitating towards it and like wanting to live there and dwell there. And but joy is hard. It's like losing weight. It's hard to lose weight. It's super easy to gain, right? So it's like being positive and providing joy takes much more time, and it also can be torn down in a moment with a negative act. So it's really important for us as a community, as a society, to it's almost like, I was reading, or maybe I was watching, I should say. I was watching this guy, and he was kind of like, we need to normalize not being friends with guys who don't take care of their kids, like something like that, right? And it's which I completely agree. Like, stay far from me. However, I think the premise of it is just like across the board. It's like as a society, we tolerate things that are not okay so much. And it's the same way, like we don't edify positive things like we do negative, and we're worse off for it, Like, so I think it's important for all of us to hold on to joy and hope and peace, because we're seeing it now. Like, we become lethargic. We're just like, there's nothing I can do about it. So let's sit in the pig pen and just like hang out in the dirt. Like, it's not going to get any better. As opposed to like hoping and aspiring and like and being excited about something, right? Like, I think as a society, those things are so important, and we need that more than now than ever, I think. And it also joy, having fun with someone, like the best ways in which I love to interact with people that maybe have perceived like high positions or et cetera. Like, I have to do a lot of fundraising. The way that I like to meet those folks is if we're at like a gala, or we're at an event together, because we're experiencing something together. And it's not like this very prescriptive, like, let me sit down in your office and ask you for what I need. Okay, yeah, we'll follow up. Here are action items. I get to actually experience you as a human being. Like, I actually get to know you while we're doing an activity. And that could be like watching a Raptors game, or that could be, sitting down and having dinner at a gala and listening to, the thousands of speeches, and then me seeing the body language of you being like, these people are not done yet, right? And we be like, yeah, okay. So when's salad coming, Those are opportunities for human interaction, and we don't get enough of it. And I think coming out of COVID, like the long-term effects of that for a generation are very real. And so like being able to interact with each other, being able to experience things together, um, that's what creates our social contract, and joy is a part of that. But sometimes what we're doing is, so TD Jakes has this thing called comrades, constituents, and confidants. I kind of already spoke with the confidant piece with your inner circle, but like your comrades are for what you're for, right? So that's like the joy piece, right? Like, we both love doing this thing and we're experiencing it together. But your constituents are people who are against what you're against, right? So what ends up happening is we all start to rally and come together by trauma bonding, right? Like, we're all seeing the ice videos and we're enraged. And so it's like me and you are locking arm in arm because I'm against what you're against, and we're against this one thing together. Let's go get it. Like, I'm not with it. I'm like, part of the social justice warrior in me is like rising up. But there's not enough of us who are for what we are all for. And I think that needs to be developed, and that needs to be fostered, because that's like people who enjoy joy, people who are like, yeah, I really love doing this particular thing, this hobby or whatever. And like, we're enthusiasts together, and we're bringing each other joy in that way, right? Like, there's not enough of that. And I think as a society, our social contract is really dependent on that. And I think we're doing a bit too much of like, I'm against what you're against, right? Rather than I'm for what you're for. And you could look at it a bit differently, but it's how it shows up, right? Like, it shows up in our feeds and we get upset, and then we're like part of the movement with folks. And most of us are motivated by anger or fear, and not many of us are motivated by joy and happiness and what that feeling brings to us. So it's important for us to pay attention to that. And I don't think we're paying attention enough, because we're just so busy, like, not that I'm blaming technology on everything, but like,
No.
we're busy scrolling,
Yeah.
and we're
No,
just
I
like,
agree with you.
feeling whatever emotion, right? So yeah, that's my thought on that.
No, I resonate deeply with the idea of like sometimes we will just group with someone because we're against the same thing. Doesn't mean we're for the same thing either. So when you're
Yes.
finished against the thing you're against, you look at each other, you're like, so what now? And there's a, well, I don't know
Okay,
where we
bye.
go from here. Yeah, bye. And so you don't have that community after the issue is gone. So it's how do you find that community after that issue is gone?
Yeah, and we're not
So
connecting as people. Yeah.
yeah, and I think that's really important in like maintaining it on a communal sense. Like it's one thing to have individual personal joy, but if I have to then go sit in a room with everyone else who's miserable, well, then
No, thank
there
you.
goes my joy.
Yeah, exactly.
So, as you've moved through life and through time, how has the idea of joy changed for you as you've grown? So, was what you considered finding joy, having joy now, the same thing if I called like 17-year-old Agapi? I was like, girl, what's your joy moment?
Yeah.
Would it be along the same realm?
Oh, definitely not. Definitely not. Which is also a thing to like, I a couple of years so I have friends that I've had have been my friends since junior kindergarten, 4th grade. And one of my friends, and so those people are like inner circle, they're my family. And one of my friends said to me one year, "You know what got you here is not going to keep you here. So you got to figure out a new strategy." And I was
Okay,
like,
first of all, she came hard on that one.
"It was a he, it's a him." Yeah. And he was kind of like, and this is someone who had seen me, my mother pass away, me navigate life, and, you know, my career was going well. And very similarly, I used to be someone who would be motivated by, tell me I can't do something. Oh, you told me I can't do it? Okay, cool. I'm gonna go do it. I'll see ya. Like, oh, you don't think I can get a degree? I'll see you in 4 years, right? And almost to the point where it's like that person has moved on again. In those instances, a me problem rather than a them problem. And so it's like I would always be motivated by someone telling me I couldn't because in some instances maybe I didn't feel like I could. I would I don't know if you watch the Michael Jordan documentary, but basically he like made up a lie just to get himself motivated to be mad. And I saw that in me. Like that used to be me. Like tell me I can't do something like it wouldn't. And if you told me, oh, you can do that, I would be less motivated to do it because what am I going to do? Oh, do it to prove you right. Like not as exciting for people or for me at least at the time. So he was kind of like what got you here is not going to keep you here. And it's definitely not going to get you where you need to go next. And that was a reflection moment for me to be like, I need to constantly be thinking through what I need in this moment in order to get to where I want to go next. Cause yeah, like prior to him kind of waking me up and having that moment, which he's given me many of those moments. So God bless him. But I think that moment made me be like, oh, okay, well, yeah, like right now, if a perfect day for me is like I'm a spa connoisseur. Why? I have become a professional problem solver. That's what I do. Like, if I were to sum up what I do for a living, like, yeah, I'm constantly problem solving. I'm at a point in my career. No one's coming to me to say, hey, things are going so well, Agapi. I just thought I would stop and let you know. It's just like this project's on time. And like nobody's taking the time to do that. When people are calling me is like, this thing's not done. We need this. We need that. What do you want me to do with this? Right? I'm a professional problem solver. So my cortisol levels are just very high all the time.
Why?
Right? So part of that for me is like, okay, what brings me joy now? A spa. I want to be in a spa. I want to be relaxed all the time. Like any opportunity for me to be pampered, massage, vacation, hang out, just like talk about anything other than problem solving.
You're
That's
in.
like my happy place. Whereas when I was younger, like maybe hanging out with friends and like or like yeah, like my priorities were just very different. Like what brings me joy would be very different. And so from that perspective, I think it's important for us to always check in with ourselves at every stage of our lives to be like, yeah, what does bring me joy in this moment? And what do I want to do? And what am I doing because I feel like I'm supposed to? Or I feel obligated because part of it also for me is like, and now I'm married. I recently got married. So, like, my family is also a priority. And I think people sometimes feel guilty about that. Like, like, I spent half my time in the US, half my time in Canada. And it took me probably 2 years of a 4 year journey of this to be like, I don't need to fly back for everyone's birthday. I don't need to fly back because somebody wants me to do something that I would much rather not be doing. But it's almost like I felt an obligation to everyone around me. And so I also had to check myself to be like, what brings me joy is actually to stay home with my husband and
It's
do this
okay.
meeting on Zoom, you know? And that's okay. Right. And to also be able to illustrate that to people because I used to think like, well, if I tell people that like I'm prioritizing this, and it's going to tell them mean to signal to them that what they have going on isn't important, and blah 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 blah. But the reality is, the older you get, your priorities shift, and any grown adult would understand that if you articulated that to them, right?
Yeah.
So I think constantly checking in to be like, what actually brings me joy and not obligation is important. And also, it's like, if I could have a perfect day, what would it be? Or if my birthday was tomorrow and money was not a thing, I would be on a private jet to a private island hanging out with my people, like, and not like just, I wouldn't have random people. It would be my board of
Your
directors
core.
so I could be myself, you know? So all of those
Absolutely.
things are things that I think people need to pay attention to because sometimes we just, or at least for myself, I just didn't notice the difference. I'm like, well, I'm doing this because I have to. And it's like, actually, I don't have to really do anything.
Because that hits. Because today I was like feeling like, I don't want to do today. So I was talking to my brother earlier in the kitchen. I was like, I don't want to adult today, and he looks at me.
Hmm.
He's like, you don't have to. I was like, what? He's like, you actually don't have to. He doesn't mean there won't be no consequences, but you
Right.
actually don't have to do anything you don't want to. And I was like, huh, well, I do want to talk to Agapi, so I'm gonna adult because that's a real part of my day I am looking forward to. But then like I'm thinking over the course of if you had asked Laurabel pre mom, like, what
Hmm.
do you do for fun? It would have been like, oh, I'm out downtown. George Street and I are finding each other.
Yeah.
Versus if you ask me today, I was like, can I take a nap? Like, can no one talk
Mm.
to me? No one ask me for nothing? Can I just lay here and wake up when my body chooses to wake up, not when responsibilities require me to
Yes, are
wake up?
calling.
And other me would have been like, girl, there is a club you need to be at. What do you mean you're sitting at home in your lounge gear? And we wouldn't be
Yeah.
the same. But I like that idea of like, as you grow and you shift, your priorities are allowed to shift, and the things that bring you joy are allowed to shift. You don't, what got you here won't keep you here, and it won't get you to where you want to be.
Mhm.
Tell them thank you from me too. That might need to make it to my
Yeah, shout out
notebook
to
of things to
Aaron.
know.
Shout out
Aaron,
to
thank you
Aaron.
from the
Yeah.
collective. We appreciate you. When you think so, you got to, in the role that I knew you previously as, you got to work with youth, you got to be in community with young people. And so when you think of this idea of joy, how would you want to share that with them? What would you want young folks to know about the idea of Black joy and joy itself?
Yeah. I think that our community has to take their pursuit seriously because they just don't have a choice, right? Which is unfortunate, but real. They don't have a choice. They have to take their pursuit seriously. But in the midst of that, not thinking about the fact that they have to take their pursuit seriously as a negative, right? And to take it on in an exploratory way. Like, I always say to young people, and this is what I really did, was when I got into a job, I would be curious about, I think everything is like a social experiment. Like, that's how I look at things. So it's like when I was in a job, it was like, what skills am I learning here that I wouldn't be able to learn at school? And how am I going to collect them while I'm here? And what is my boss's job? And how do I learn how to do their job? Right? Like, it was always a curiosity thing. Same thing when I was dating. Like, when I was dating, it was like, this is a social experiment for me to see the types of people who are not in my, let's be real, I was dating online, right? So it's like, who's not in my bubble of who I know? And this also will help me understand the types of in my case, men that are out there, right? You did something I don't like. Okay, now I know. I'd never seen that before, but now I know I don't like it, you know?
It's like, oh,
Or
you, ooh,
like,
that's spicy.
yeah, or just like the tolerance, right? Like that also that whole like I don't have to be somewhere I don't want to be. Like people would feel like they have to, I was talking to a girlfriend, she's like, well, like then I have to stay on the whole date and that and I'm like, you know how many times I've been like, listen, this has been great. This is not gonna work. Like, fun. Don't worry. Drinks on me. Bye. I'm gone.
Yeah.
Or if you're like, look, seem unstable and I can't say that to you, I'm going out the back door. I don't care. Because guess what? I don't have to be here. I don't.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, that sounds cruel and rude and all of the things, but like, as a young person, it's also just like, what makes you safe? If it feels unsafe, I'm gone. If it feels safe, I'm going to communicate and exercise my adulting to communicate what it is. And then part of it is like, some people are going to receive it well. Some people are not going to receive it well, right? It's all part of the learning of the experience, right? It's just like, okay, well, now I know maybe that way I communicated didn't work for that particular type of personality type. Now I know moving forward. But I think we're often too scared to like try and test. And I think if we approach everything as though it's like an experiment or you're creating a hypothesis for yourself or it's a learning experience, when we enter into every situation that way, then it just becomes a lot easier for us to digest the highs and lows of it because there is going to be rejection, there is going to be disappointment, there is going to be all of those things, but there also could be joy in like, oh, that was a fun experience. Like it was fun to explore this thing or to, because most of us think about the things that we want to say or ask or do, and we just don't do it because we're just like, oh, I'm not supposed to do that. Right. But if you pursue all of the things that you're doing seriously and make your intentions clear, I think communication is what we're lacking in society. It's just like, make your intentions clear. There's nothing wrong. Like, oftentimes I encounter people who, like leaders who don't tell their staff anything. It's like, no, like they don't need to know. I'm making the decisions. Like, this is what's happening. And that's like so the opposite of how I lead. Cause I'm like, if I explain things, then they also can learn. Like, I didn't just like say, oh, I'm making this decision because I picked like A or B. No, I put thought and strategy behind it. So
Absolutely.
why would I rob my team of the opportunity to understand my thought process? It does two things. Number one, it helps them understand how I think so that next time I make a decision that they might not love, at least they can say, well, I know how Agapi's thought process works and this is probably likely, or I make a decision I can't explain. Then they can say, well, I know how Agapi's mind works and I know that she likely went through the same process she goes with everything else. And therefore, even though I don't know the details, I trust her judgment, right? I know her judgment enough. So it does that. Number two, it also allows for people to understand and learn as well, like intent. So it's like, if somebody who is reporting to me doesn't necessarily have that strategic muscle, like massaged or worked out yet, then we together, by me simply explaining my thought process, is allowing for them to be exposed to how somebody would think differently. Just like when you're going on a date with people, you're being exposed to different personalities. When you're going to a different workplace, you're being exposed to different personalities, working styles, etc. So I think no matter where folks sit, and young people also can be in leadership positions as well, my advice to them is, yeah, to look at everything with a learning opportunity, with and do not be attached to the outcome is what I would say. Like, don't be too attached to what the outcome would be and go in with an exploratory thought process, but take what you're doing seriously, no matter what it is that you're doing.
I really like that. And I love the social experiment aspect of like your existence in spaces because I'm a nosy individual. So it's a social experiment for me too. I was like, I need to know how you are all surviving this. Like, help me build my toolkit for the next
Yeah.
thing I need to survive. Because I've had the opportunity to work in various different industries. And the first thing I like to do is like date my colleagues in terms
Hmm.
of like, I want to get to know you. Let's go for a coffee. Tell me, what's your favorite part of this job? What's the one thing that if someone was coming in and you knew they were not going to stay, what's the one thing you want them to know about how to survive this? Like, how do we engage that way? At the end of the day, if I'm walking out of this, I've picked up little things that will help me survive the next space that I'm going to be into.
Totally.
Because I don't always have control of how long I get to exist in this area with you. So
Yeah.
I really
And
like
that's the
that.
other thing. Like, there's a lot of it that's not about our own choice. So it's like, I can't tell you how many moments where I'm like, so I could have just done and said what I wanted anyways, because like that
Yeah,
didn't even last that long.
I agree with you completely.
Mhm.
So we got one more joy question and then one more, like, I call it my wild and wacky question that I always ask anyone when I get the chance to sit down with them.
Okay,
So my
awesome.
last question about joy is, how do you make sure that you spread joy? Is it something you do intentionally, or is it something that just because people are in space with you, they're going to get a sense of joy?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't think I'm intentional about it, or as intentional as I should be, is what
Okay.
I'll say. I'm kind of just like, listen, I have a lot to be excited and happy about in my life. So, like, I think my just being in a space, I think anytime, and I'm sure you, that's what you were experiencing, anytime I see like another Black woman or folks, period, that excites me the most. But like general spaces where there's other people, like I love to see people win. I Yeah, like I think it's a natural kind of thing for me. You have not met my husband. My husband is like a natural hype man. Like I literally live in a house with a hype man. No one can have low self-esteem
Oh,
around him. So
okay.
I think that's like gone up a notch since we've been together because he's just, yeah, he's very, very good at making people feel good when they're around. So I should actually ask him after this if that's like intentional or not. But I say that to say it's not necessarily intentional, but it's also about how I feel about myself, right? Like I want to feel joy. I want to, usually, if people are sour, then when you sit beside them, you feel sour, you
So
know?
you want, okay. I really
Hmm.
like that idea. And I was like, I think you and your husband might have a symbiotic relationship where he feeds you joy and you feed him joy. And it's just like
Yeah.
infinity loop of joy givers. So, like, good job, both of you. Picked good
Yeah.
humans.
Yeah,
Okay.
totally.
So, as we begin to clue up this conversation, the question I always ask people, and this is once again tying back to the fact I'm nosy, okay?
Okay.
That is the basis of this
I
question.
love that though.
If you got to go back in time to talk
Mm,
to younger Agapi and tell her anything about anything, but more specifically about this idea of joy, what
mm.
would you want her to know from this version of you?
I think when the younger years was very riddled with loss and betrayal. And so I think I spend a lot of time being bitter and sad. And I would probably go back and say, like, don't even waste your time. I think I would probably say what my career coach said years later, which is differentiate what's a them problem versus a you problem and like just keep your eye forward. I felt like I always kept my eye forward, but maybe motivated by the wrong things. So I would tell myself to continue to be motivated, but to be motivated on my own terms and not to prove others right or wrong, but to do it because that's what I wanted to do. So yeah, I think I would say I would go back and tell myself not to waste so much time. And I think now I have this ritual. I don't like the word ritual, but like
Practice.
this routine, this practice. If I'm really enraged and upset, I will allow myself to feel that way, but I will put a timer. I will give myself, depending on the severity, sometimes 15 minutes, sometimes whatever. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, sometimes I still end up pissed off. But I give myself a timer to feel the feels and be upset. And then as soon as that thing goes da 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 da, then I'm like, okay, now I need to focus on what I'm going to do to mitigate the situation or fix it or whatever the case is. For me, that works. For some people, it doesn't work. I don't lead emotionally, but I think that's something else I would advise myself to do. It's like, I'm going to give myself the time to feel the feels and be upset about the situation, but then I'm going to create an action plan as to how I'm going to either bounce back, fix it, whatever the case is. I think if I had adopted those skills much earlier on, I would have probably saved a lot of time and energy.
Okay. I really like that. And I like the vulnerability of saying that you allow yourself to feel the feels, because I think sometimes, especially as Black women, we don't give ourselves the time to be like, this is shit. It's okay to acknowledge that this is shit, and we just move to like, okay, how do I get out of this shit? But it's okay to connect with that emotional aspect of it. So I like that you added that to your practice to feel the feels. That's it. That's a wrap.
Okay,
I
this was
want
so fun.
to thank you for coming, for making time in your schedule, because you are a busy woman and you are so accomplished, and it's an honor to know I exist in your like world.
And vice
No
versa.
shit. So thank you for taking the time and for giving us so many nuggets to kind of take with ourselves into this year. I really appreciate you.
Awesome. I appreciate you too. Thanks.
All right, folks, that's a wrap on today's episode. I can't wait to see you all again soon. Tune in for our next courageous conversation about